and and they look. I'm trying to look at his expression on the portrait, and he's, well, I guess most men at that time just didn't have much of an expression, So, but James, you alluded to the fact that one of the other incidents, I guess, is the house where this took place was turned into a tourist attraction. The same thing happened with this Lawson home that the Charles brother, the killer, Marion Lawson, and this was in Germantown, North Carolina. He opened up the house as a tourist attraction. You can imagine what kind of paranormal stuff is probably going on there. And matter of fact, the cake, now get this is really interesting. The cake that Marie Lawson, one of the daughters, baked for that Christmas, 1929, was on display on the tour. In other words, I don't know how they preserved or anything, but it was eventually was put in a glass case because visitors were coming around picking the raisins off to take as souvenirs.
You think they were raisins?
Yeah, huh?
I said you think they were raisins.
Well, you don't know what they are.
Yeah, what I was saying is, there could have been rat droppings after all those years.
Yeah, I didn't think cakes could last that long. It must have I know sugar preserves things, but, who knows?
I don't know. Things can last a long time. I remember when my kids were young, I'm talking like 6, 7 years old, they would throw stuff in boxes in their closet. And then when we, bought a couple different houses, like 15 years went by. And my son goes, "Hey, look, I found my Twinkie in the package." And you know what? They no mold. They look this is good and fresh. He was going to actually open it up and eat it. But then, I seen pictures. If you Google, and I'm going to say the major hamburger chain, there's people showing pictures of their hamburgers that are a year, 2 years old. It hasn't got any mold on it. It's still perfectly intact. Now, they're probably hard, but I mean, it makes you wonder. So I guess a cake could last a long time in the right, conditions, I guess. Now, James, what do you think?
Well, I do know this much about a Twinkie. They will survive a nuclear blast right there with the cockroaches. So those things are made to last for a long time. I'm telling you, they are. And matter of fact, when we was kids, if we couldn't find our Nerf football, we'd use them for Nerf football. I mean, they was multi-purpose, them daggone Twinkies. But as far as the burger goes, if it's more than a few days old, I do not want to eat it or even have it around the house. That's just tempting fate there.
No, actually what a couple of scientists actually did is they put them, on a plate and put them in like a simulated cupboard and just let them sit there for a year. You can actually Google it. Go on YouTube. And you'll be surprised. A year later, they pull out this plate, right? And the hamburger looks like it looked like when it went in. That scares me. There is a couple brands of ice cream out there.
Uh-oh.
You know what? You take it out, and if you forget to put it away in the freezer after you dish out your ice cream, you go there the next morning, and guess what? It hasn't melted. It's still a hard lump of stuff. Have you guys ever had any of that?
I have, but that makes me wonder, well, what does it do in your stomach?
I don't know. It's all, if you look at it, it's no milk products in it. That's the scary part.
All the preservatives.
I don't know what it is. It's scary. But we're off the subject. Lizzie Borden, how old was she? Does anybody know how old she was when she whacked off her mom and dad?
I think she was in her late 20s. I could be wrong, but that's what I think she was. And she had another sister that lived there, too. She might have even been older, because that was the thing. She was kind of, back in them days, if you wasn't married by 18 or 19 or 20, they'd consider you like an old maid.
Yeah, what year was that when she did that? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I believe it was 1890, I want to say 1891. I know it was 1890s. I'm pretty sure, I think it was 1891.
Yeah, 1892.
92, okay.
Yeah, you were close. Yeah, and what? Now, was she executed, or what happened to her after the trial?
She Actually, she was acquitted, and she, she had to live with that because the town of Fall River, the local, it's mostly Portuguese people. They call it Fall Reeve because I lived there. I know. So, and she's had to live with that afterwards. Because honestly, I truly think she was guilty as you can get. Because I've got some facts that could prove it, actually. But irregardless of that, she had to live there. So she actually kind of changed her name a little bit to Elizabeth. And I think she moved to another town for a little while. But she didn't die till the 1920s. So she lived on. She had a fortune that she lived off of because her parents died. So, she was scorned, so to speak, as anybody would in a small town like that, especially in the 1800s.
I wonder how she got off on appeal, or how come they didn't?
Acquitted. She was acquitted.
Yeah, but how? I mean, why? I mean, wasn't she supposed to have been covered with blood and stuff, if I remember right?
No, actually, she wasn't covered in blood. That was one of the things. She wasn't covered in blood. And the reason, here's why that she wasn't covered in blood. It was, theory is she had 2 or 3 dresses on. So when she did it, she took that dress off and she burned it. That she was covered in, with the blood. And there was a lot of things she did. Like she changed her story a couple times. And there was a lot of things. If you look into the case of that, which I have a few times. And plus, here's another thing. Back in the 1800s, there was a stigma. Very rarely did they convict women. I mean, it was just one of them things they just didn't do. And you really had to have some lockdown evidence. And even though her alibis and stuff were kind of shady, she got acquitted. And she got lucky she got acquitted because, as far as I'm concerned, she was guilty as you can get.
Interesting. Now, Sam, what do you think?
I think circumstances of the fact that I'm just reading some of the stuff from before, that it was unusual for a woman to be a killer like this, and the fact that there probably was a lot of circumstances. So, it kind of makes you wonder if that trial had taken place today with all the DNA testing and everything, it would have been hands down. She was either going to be completely innocent or she was guilty of this. But I can imagine someone like her just being in a town like that. She'd almost have to, being acquitted of the crime, could not stay in a place like that where the townspeople had those suspicions. Matter of fact, I would be in fear of my life. She should have been in fear of her life that someone would take her out because someone's going to seek revenge on those murders. Because they never did find out. They never had a replacement person to put on trial for the murders. It was always, her being the suspect. So I guess she did move, I believe, and she lived to be 66, but she did die of pneumonia eventually, about 1927.
I wonder, did she ever get married and have children or anything like that?
Don't know. Maybe James knows.
I don't think she did. I've never, all my research, I've never found anything where she'd gotten married or remarried or had any kids at all. And the act of living in a town like that after you've done like that, she was kind of shunned. The church shunned her and everything. But yet she's buried in a cemetery there in Fall Reeve, right there by her parents. And she's right there. And the thing is, when both I believe it was the mother was killed first, and 45 minutes later, I believe it was, the father was killed. And supposedly when they were both killed, Lizzie was in the house but never heard nothing. And I can assure you that I've been in that house. So if you're killing somebody with an axe, you're going to hear something. So she allegedly didn't hear anything. She was there for both murders. She was in the house the whole time with both murders that covered about an hour and 15-minute span and didn't hear a thing.
Yeah, and if somebody was committing murders of, her parents, why didn't they kill her?
These are all good points, right? She's guilty. Listen, she is so guilty. But again, in those days, it was very rare to convict a woman. And I mean, you'd really have to, I think if they had caught her with a bloody dress, they would have been probably might have swayed it, but she was kind of smart. I think she had 2 or 3 dresses on one over, because prior to that, like a week or two before, she had bought a dress that was about 2 sizes too big for her. Now, why would she do that? Think about it. She premeditated this.
Yeah, but wouldn't she got blood on her arms and her face and her hair and all that stuff?
You would think so, but, she could have had a bonnet on. The dresses back then, some of them were long-sleeved. So it's, she could have had gloves on, whatever. She could have just had dirty hands and washed them. But I guarantee she had another dress on, probably took it off and burned it. Because she was in the house for both murders. I didn't hear nothing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, the famous song they made, the kids used to sing around about her.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So she was really a famous person in the town.
Well, that was known as the crime and the trial of the century. It really was in the 1890s. It truly was.
I just wonder what her motive was for killing her parents. Was it maybe material object or?
Yeah, the motive was money and land, because what happened. Here's the thing. That was the motive, because the next day or two, if they were still alive, he was going to change his will, and all that was going to go to the mother, which was really her stepmother, wasn't her blood mother. So they were going to be left out. Her and her sister was going to be left out of everything. They weren't going to get nothing. You see, everything fits. You know what I mean? There's motive, right? So there's your motive.
I wonder where her sister was at the time. I wonder if her sister had anything to do with it.
That's a good question. I don't think her sister had anything to do with it. There was also a maid supposedly floating around somewhere, or came right after. But I do know Lizzie was in the house the whole time.
Yeah, I tell you what. I mean, good that she didn't get married then, because I tell you what. Could you imagine marrying somebody and found out they were axe murderer? I tell you, that would be, going to bed and thinking about sleeping. How could you sleep with one eye open every night? What's she going to do tonight?
Yeah, and if you can look up all these things, like he was going to have, the father was going to have the will changed, so she would have been left out of everything the next day, or it was either that day or I think it was the next day it was going to happen. So that was her motive. I mean, it's all right there, and I don't think there may have been some abuse. Who knows? That's just allegedly. That's not a fact. But it wasn't her real mother. It wasn't her blood mother. It was a stepmother. You know how that goes. Maybe they didn't get along real well either. So there's just a lot of factors that factor in. It really points to her doing it.
Now, how big a house was it there, James? You lived near it.
Yeah, I've been in the house. It's not a huge house, but it's one of those houses put like this. If you were in the house and somebody was getting axe murdered downstairs and you were upstairs, you would know it. You would hear it. You just would. Especially 2 of them. You would hear that. Oh, I just don't know how you would not hear it. And supposedly nobody heard nothing. And I don't believe that.
Well, Sam, I guess we'll be talking to you the last half an hour of the show.
Yes, I'll be back.
Okay, my friend. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
So anyway, yeah, that's just, I don't know. We're going to find out a lot here in the next few minutes with Colleen Foley. She worked in the Borden house, and I got to think that she must have a lot of stories to tell us. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark.
Scintillas in the stream,